guys. So we discuss about server and services, but out of that one more server is in that one server is there. That is called a domain controller, authentication server, Active Directory, Active Directory, domain services. This is one entirely one single line only. Different names, different parts of names are there. Okay, so we'll go to that point. Before going to that, so we have to discuss what is a work group, what is a domain. So when I started last part, so that there it is. I asked like I told, I have a laptop. In my laptop, I have a user, right? So where is this user information store? In my laptop only. Okay, in my laptop. And I want to install some application. I want to uninstall some application. I want to install some application, uninstall some application, installation or uninstallation of application. Or I want to change settings. I want to change some settings. So who can able to do it? Administrator account. Okay, who can able to install an application, uninstallation of the application, changing of settings, disk management, disk management, service management, like that. Okay, so anything. So we are 1 hour we say setting means it comes with everything. Okay, you want to install mainly uninstallation of application. Okay, what we need a admin account. There is a two accounts are there in a Windows operating system. One is admin account, another one is standard account. Okay, standard account means secondary user. Standard account don't get any chance to change any settings or anything. Okay, so here it is. I have a admin. For example, I have taken four pieces. Actually, I would, whenever I they take a design that is for your previous batch, Noida 4 batch. Okay, N4 batch only. So there is a people like I four five pieces I have taken. First PC username is Akash, second PC is Kirti, third PC is Deepak, fourth PC is Mansi, fifth PC is Arvaz Khan. Okay. Next, these are all users in these PCs, and there are administrator of that PC. There are local administrators of that PC. Okay. So on PC one, I want to install some application with which account? Akash account, because he is the administrator of PC1. I want to install or I want to uninstall some application or I want to change some settings in PC2. I have to log in with Kirti because Kirti is the administrator of PC2 and Kirti user account information stored in a PC2. Deepak user information, password, data stored in PC3. Okay, 2 points, guys. Administrator. Next one is user information stored. Now, Akash want to log into PC2. Akash. Next day, Akash want to log into PC2. You put a Akash name and password. Then you cannot able to log in. Why? Because Akash user information stored in PC1, not in PC2. For example, Deepak want to change settings of PC5. He cannot change it because the Deepak user information are there in a PC5 and he is not administrator of PC5. It is a very simple to understand, guys. Work group is individual PCs, individual systems or individual laptops, what are the name you put it. It is an individual one. There is no centralized control. It is a decentralized control. Every device having their own administrator. Every device having their own administrator. Every device having their own administrator. Okay, any changes in the PC by their local administrator account only, by their local administrator account only. A user cannot be logged into other PCs. Okay, because the user information stored in that particular PC only. This is called a work group, guys. Again, what is a work group? Decentralized administration, no centralized control. Every PC has their own administrator. One user cannot log into other PC, and user information stores means username, password, settings store in their own PCs only. You can control or manage each and every device separately, not centrally. Separately, not centrally. More number of PCs difficult to manage. So that is a hint for a next part. What is a hint for a next part? I have a 5 PCs. Okay, individually we can manage 10 PCs, 20 PCs. For example, guys, you know, actually I'm a trainer, right? So of course, I'm giving training, right? Now I don't know how your PCs are look like. I don't know what is your PC environment because we are connected in online. Online, you know my desktop environment, but I don't know your desktop environment, right? But in organizations, what is there? So you have to maintain your desktop with certain rules. For example, I have a lot of icons are there in my desktop, lot of icons in there my desktop. So you might put a company, put a rule. So the organization want to enforce a rule that all these desktops should not you should not users should not save any data on their desktop. Understand? So this is a small example. On desktop people save the data, right? They put icons and put a data on the desktop environment, right? So on screen, desktop screen. Okay, so my company want to put a rule like no one will put anything on their desktop. So this is simple. Now I'm the my company one of the administrators. So what I've done, I'm daily going for a checking. I go to each and every PC, check anybody is put any data on the screen, or anybody put a lot of icons on their screen. So then I want to change it, or I want to ask the person login and remove all the data, right? So strict actions, but continuously enforcing individually difficult. Or I want to apply a policy. For example, firewall policy. I am going to each and every PC. I configure a firewall. Very difficult. Or I go to each and every PC and configure local group policies. For 4 5 PCs, no problem. Think about 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000. So large number of pieces or increases, it is difficult to manage individual systems in centralized. Okay. So what I have done, I put a centralized computer. In this one, what I have done, I create some users here. User one, user two, user three, user four, user five, user six, like that. I create a users in my centralized server. And each PC is having a names, right? So each PC having C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, like this. I have to join these individual work group PCs to domain. I have to join these individual work group PCs to the domain. I'm joining to this. Now what happened? C1, C2, C3, C4 names are displaying here. How to join? That is also I'm not having correct image, but practically we can able to show it. But already I think I forward it. Otherwise, I will forward it again, guys. So work group and domain, both how Active Directory server is there, how client is there, and then how both will be communicate each other. So like how to create a user in the server, how to access that user in the server. That video is there, including password changing, also there. It's a old one, not a recent one. Okay, it is a very old one also, not recent one. That is, I have taken for a SD batch. Okay, this also good. Work group domain, part three group policy with example. Work group and domain add AD users. This is also good. Work group and domain. Work group and domain. Okay, like this. Work group active directory. This is the correct one. So 1 hour 33 minutes is there, no? Okay, okay. So this is also I'm going to forward. Where are you? In this one, both theory and mainly practical part. Compulsory check it, guys. It is very useful. 1 second. Oh, ఇది ఏదో మాట్లాడట్లేదు. Hello. I'm getting throat pain. Guys, look at here. This is your system configuration properties. Like you go to the your settings, your system. There you will go to about, right? So there you will go to about. Okay. Then go to rename this PC advanced because your PC is Windows 10 Home. Okay, you won't get much options. So can you see here it is? I'm in a work group. So if you click on change, you have a domain, then click on member of domain, select domain, put the domain name. Domain has a domain name. Okay. You have to put a domain name, okay, and authenticate. Then you will join into the domain. Okay, now I'm in work group. I can join into the domain. But I cannot do it. Why? Because I'm a Windows 10 work group. Sorry, Windows 10 home. Home editions cannot join into the domain. Okay. So it is very simple to understand. It is when you go to rename this PC, you'll get this screen. So click on change, member of, select the domain and put the domain name. So that to join the domain. So make sure that you are having a domain controller. This is called a domain controller. It contains a database. In the database, the PCs, those who join into the domain, that information means computer information, and we can able to create a users, groups, other resources like a printer, scanner kind of stuff. We can able to put it here. Next, this domain controller authenticate users when they log into the client PCs. Like user one is login to C1. What will happen? User one information not in the C1, not in the C1. So what it will do? It will send a information to domain controller. Domain controller authenticate user one. So then user one can able to log in. Again, I'm telling user one information located in the domain controller, not in the local PC. So when our user one is try to log into C1, so the information go to the authentication information go to domain controller. So it will verify username and password and said, yes, you got authenticated, you can log into C1. I'm telling very simple points only. A lot of history is there. I'm telling very simple way. Like that. So I am trying to log into C3, U3 here, U5. Maybe it is U2. Okay. Now I have to log in with U4 in a C5. We can't log in. Why? It is not in the domain. It is not in the domain. It is in the network, but not in the domain. Understand, guys? C5 computer in the network, but not in the domain. it is not joined into the domain, it is a work group or a different domain. So obviously, whenever you try to log in with a domain user to, okay, a computer which is not in our domain, we cannot able to log in. We can't able to log in. So that's why this is, we call it as a logical administrative boundary. Logical, what is a domain? Logical administrative boundary of users, groups, computers, and other resources and services like that. Okay, logical administrative boundary. So it is, even the C5 is in the network, but we cannot log into that one. Next one, guys, these users can log in. Today they log in like this. Tomorrow they log in differently. For example, tomorrow I want to log in with, here it is user 2. Here it is user 5, user 1, user 3. Okay, like a shift wise, morning shift, afternoon shift, evening shift, different people will come, but same computers, different names, so they can log in. So user can be login in a any computer in the domain. Next one, I said, I want to enforce a policy, that is, users cannot create any thing on the desktop. So what I will do it, I'll create a group policy. I link the group policy here. Okay, so then so these group policies will be enforced through network on everyone. So obviously a user is trying to create some data on the desktop. It is don't agree. You don't have a permission. Okay, you don't have any permissions. Contact administrator. Now, who is this administrator now? Administrator is belongs to domain only. Admin account is belongs to domain. Domain admin is admin for everyone. Domain admin is admin for everyone. Okay, for local PCs, for PCs, they do domain computers don't have any separate administrators. So domain admin is a domain admin account member is administrator for the domain users and computers. Okay, if you want to change the settings, domain admin account only can able to change the settings. You want to install an application, you want to uninstall an application, you want to change the settings, you want to do some disk management kind of stuff or service management kind of stuff, you want to do some BitLocker kind of stuff, who can able to do it? Only domain admin. If you know the domain admin password, then you're able to do it, otherwise forget about it. Okay, so but in large number of computers we can create a policy and we can enforce that policy to everyone. So that is called a group policy. Not only a desktop icon kind of stuff, lot of things. Firewall settings, I want to do firewall setting for 100 computers. Individually going is difficult, so simply create a group policy, and in the group policy you have to tell these are settings, so then link the policy, then automatically it is deploy. Okay, so this is the simplest way to explain this one. Okay, this is a domain controller. Domain controller contains a database. The database, inside a database, what is the information? User information, computer information, resource information, service information, group information, it is there. So whenever the computers are joined into the domain, so the domain has the names of each and every computer. So whenever user is trying to log into the computer, he can able to log in. I'm going back to once again here. So what is the domain? Centralized administration. Domain, in the domain, centralized administration, centralized control, domain controller. Centralized control, here in the domain we call it as a domain controller, which is nothing but a server only, which is nothing but a server which we installed with the Active Directory domain services. Domain administrator is admin for all systems in the domain. Enforce various type of settings to large number of users and computers in the domain, called a group policy. Means you want to enforce settings to the large number of computers or user wise. You simply create a policy, then the policy will apply to everyone, or group of users, or a group of computers. Okay, so users, computers, groups, services, resources, information stored in your central system, centralized administrator, centralized control, right? So it is stored there only. So because that is the server, also called as domain controller. Domain user can able to log into any domain computer kind of stuff. So here it is, Active Directory domain. Guys, again, we'll go back to the this point. Guys, there is a question called what is the difference between workgroup and domain, or what is workgroup and what is domain? Both the cases, similar answer only. Either you tell about workgroup first and domain first, or while you're comparing both the things. Workgroup is a decentralized administration, means there is no central administrator to administrate all these pieces. No centralized control. Every PC has their own administrator. One user cannot log into another user. Individually controlling is very difficult. Okay, we can control individually, not centrally. The number of PCs increases, difficult to manage in the organizations. Users and passwords are stores. User account password information stored in their own PCs only. What is a domain? What is a domain? Is a centralized administration, centralized control, domain controller. Okay. So domain administrator is a admin for all domains, all systems in the domain. We can create a policy and we are enforce that policy to multiple computers, domain computers and users. So then we can enforce certain settings to it. For example, by deploying an application, or for changing of particular settings, or following of certain setting, desktop setting, firewall setting, network setting, the login related settings, folder redirection related settings, okay, network access related settings. We can create a setting and enforce the setting to multiple users and computers. User information, computer information stored in the central server only, that is called a domain controller. A user in the domain can able to log into any other domain computers. Okay guys, that is very important. Work group and domain, mainly work group is decentralized, domain is centralized. Every user, the users in the work group, the it is individual PC. Work group means it is individual PC, not depends upon any centralized servers. But domain is always depends upon the centralized server called a domain controller. Okay guys, not only reading by opening the particular part, once read it, also remove that one and go to another slide, or close it, and again try to practice. Okay guys, lot of people got this question like what is domain. Immediately people will start searching in a Google what is domain. So when you search for search in a Google what is domain, different set of answers you will get it. The area of a territory owned controlled by particular ruler or government. Computer distribution subset of internet with the address sharing common. It is given directly from the Google and from the certain dictionary. Okay, so you'll get a lot of different type of sentences, and it will confuse with my sentence. Okay, so always search what is AD domain, Active Directory domain. What is a Active Directory domain? It is nothing but a Microsoft service. Okay, it is a nothing but a Microsoft service. But what it is exactly? What service it is? It is a logical administrative boundary of users and computers. Active Directory contains a database. Active Directory maintains a database which stores user information, computer, group, services, and resource information. Active Directory also authenticate users when they log into the domain computers. Active Directory database name is NTDS.DIT, meaning is New Technology Directory Service Directory Information Tree. Okay, that is a database name. The database meaning is it stored data. Which data? Domain, users, computers, groups, and their resources, services, domain related things stored in a NTDS.DIT. And also Active Directory do authentication. Active Directory having database and also do authentication. 2 points. Active Directory. What is this authentication protocols? How it is do authentication using some protocols called like Kerberos and LDAP. So what is that? 88389 is nothing but a port numbers. Okay, Windows servers are started with a Windows NT server. Windows server, the first one is NT server. In the NT server, the database names, Active Directory name, or everything is different. Authentication protocols also different. Windows NT server, it is exactly not required. Exactly say we can. It's not required. Like you are having a Windows NT server time. So these are the things like instead of Active Directory, you are having a SAM database. Okay, NTLM authentication. Okay, so this is your Windows NT server time. Your instead of Active Directory database, you are having SAM database, and authentication protocol we use NTLM. But in a 2000, that Windows NT domain changed. Windows NT domain changes to Active Directory, and in 2008, it is again Active Directory changes to Active Directory domain services. Guys, is it a Active Directory or Active Directory domain services? Now it is Active Directory domain services. There is no difference between Active Directory and domain services directly. Okay, both are same. But why it is domain services? Because Active Directory other services also available. So out of that one, the Active Directory service is Active Directory domain service. Okay. Yes. So, what is the advantage of using this centralized domain controller kind of concept? It is in a particular organizations, large number of computers are there. So, users can be sit in a different places. Users information we cannot able to put user creation into every pieces is difficult. Controlling centralized controlling is also very difficult. So, what is this domain controller will do? Is store users, computers, and groups and other informations there, and also it is useful for other different type of services. Authentication, for example, i have a printer I have a printer in my organization, so I create a group policy. Only these particular users, for example HR users, only can access the printer. HR users can able to access the printer, so only HR can able to access the printer, others not. Okay, so that is the advantage of your Active Directory. And bottom I have written about Azure AD, guys. So whenever you want to build a domain environment, you need a server. And next one is to build a server, you have to buy server, you have to install operating system, that is again costly, network connectivity, and again public IP address you have to connect it, and again you have to follow the security, physical security, network security for both internal and external attacks. And server can be down, so then we require a multiple servers, means additional domain controller kind of stuff is also required. So to avoid that much burden on a organization, we can simply move to Active Direct. For example, big organization is there. For example, TCS is there, very big organization. Wipro, very big organization. HCL, big organization. Cognizant, big organization. Large number of users, large number of people are there. So they can go for a domain, I mean physical environment on premises, server environment. They can go. For example, small organizations are there, so they cannot. They have only maximum 100 or 200 employees or 500 employees max. For them, they want to maintain a server environment, and all this cost is more burden. Whether it is small or big, it is very easy to create and manage the Active Directory environment from the cloud service. That is called a Azure. Azure is a Microsoft public cloud. Azure AD is a Active Directory service from Azure cloud. Okay. Here something I have written. We when we connect domain into public or using for production. Okay, purchase a domain name, IP address, licenses, firewalls, dedicated connections. Okay, user lines you have to purchase it, and kind of stuff you have to do it. Yes, this is about your work group domain and Active Directory domain. Anybody understand or completely not understand? Okay, guys, compulsory. What is work group? What is domain? What is the difference between work group and domain? What is an Active Directory? What is Active Directory domain? What is an Active Directory? What is authentication means? Where we use this Active Directory?